So this is the first of an occasional series of interviews that we're going to be doing with church members from St Mary's and Salewest Community Church. And today I'm joined by Emmeline, which is great to have you along. Emmeline, do you just want to introduce yourself, kind of family, work, church situation?
Okay, I'm Emmeline, married to James. We've been married for 10 years this year. We've been involved in St Mary's for the last 10 years, and over the last couple of years, more so involved in the Fullard youth congregation on a Friday night. We live in Sale and I work at Wythenshawe Hospital. I'm a physio. I'm more on the respiratory chest side, so that's been quite interesting with the recent COVID-19 situation. And people often think about a physio and think we do massage and we look after poorly legs, but when you're doing respiratory and you're doing ICU, it really is the doctors that save the lives and the physios that make those lives worth living. So we're essentially doing a lot of work to clear secretions from the chest, and we're doing a lot of passive movements to make sure people don't get stiff when they're on ventilators. And then when they are woken up, we're often teaching them to walk again.
So what was it like for you kind of in hospital at the start of the lockdown?
It was really bizarre because the first week in March, James and I actually had a holiday. We went to North Yorkshire, we had a cottage holiday and we were walking. A lot of you know that James works in news and current affairs for TWR, and he decided we were going to have a news-free week. So we didn't turn the news on the whole week, and we came back and the next morning agreed to have breakfast with some friends. And they were talking about panic buying food, and we were like, don't be silly, what are you talking about? Why would you want to panic buy food? We tried to get an online grocery shop, as we normally do at Tesco's, and pick it up on the way home. And there was like a waiting list of 4 weeks. We were thinking, what on earth is going on here? And going back into work the next day, it had gone from this little coronavirus pod and notices on the door of the hospital saying, if you've been to Wuhan, then perhaps you might want to think about staying away from here and isolating at home and only contacting the hospital if you're feeling really, really unwell and needing support. And for the staff, it was, you might want to think about getting yourself fit tested for a PPE mask. So fit testing is where they measure you up for a mask and they spray these horrible potions at you to see if you can actually taste anything to make sure that you've got a good fit. So gone from just that kind of low key to coming back from holiday to actually having our first COVID patients in the hospital, which I treated from my first day back. And every day policies were changing, and that was the tiring thing. You check your emails and there'd be an update and things would be different, and then they go, actually today we're going to do things differently. So those first 2 to 3 weeks, whilst everyone was getting up and running, it was really like almost rethinking everything you do. So with some of the treatments that we'd normally do, thinking this is an aerosol generating procedure, which means we're spraying particles which could contain coronavirus into the air. How can we make this safer? So sometimes that involved taking patients into side rooms to do those treatments, involved making sure that we were gowned up, and it just made us, have to think about things that you just do normally automatically.
I remember speaking to you, I think probably back in March, and you were talking there, that was back when people were talking about short supply of PPE equipment, and I think at that stage you were the only one who was kind of kitted out.
Yeah.
And we're kind of getting sent in each day. And as you said, all of the masks are kind of made to measure. So you were good to go, but others weren't in that same position.
There's masks and there's masks, and the best quality mask is the N95, which is what I've had since I worked in cystic fibrosis care, and I can show you guys a picture of that. One sec. So this is the N95 mask. So it has filters on it, and it's essentially designed for the building trade, really. So they're quite roughy tufty, but they have been used in healthcare as a means of filtering out literally all particles. So for going in for COVID positive patients in the intensive care unit, as a team we decided that only those with the N95s would go in to those zones for as long as possible and treat the patients.
Was it scary?
More patients, so more staff with those now. Is it scary?
Was it a scary situation?
I don't think I ever felt scared, because you're just doing your job. I think the most frustrating thing for me is I'm not a shy person, but I naturally have a quiet voice, and I struggle to project that. And when you've got that on your face and you've got a face shield and then you've got goggles on underneath that, to try and show empathy to a patient when you're wearing a pair of goggles, it's really hard, because when they're talking, you kind of give them quite a lot through looking at them. And then you add the fact that you've got colleagues who are asking for advice on other areas of the hospital, and you're doing that on your phone, on FaceTime, wearing all of that. You're answering bleeps, and you're also answering the phone in the bays when family members are calling, and to try and show empathy for those family at home who want an update on where their loved ones are at. You feel it and you want to project it, but this mask just makes you sound like a robot, and you feel like you lose that communication aspect of your job, which I think has been the hardest thing in this time.
How's your faith helped you in that? Because it's a difficult workplace at this time, and I know you've lost a number of patients as well, but so how's faith kind of shaped what you're doing?
I think for me, when there's nothing else you can do for the patient, you can pray for them, and you can quietly pray for them in your heart. But also, there's been some really special moments on the ICU, and I remember sharing a story with you a few weeks back about a gentleman who had a Good News Bible on his tray table, and I treated him, went through all the physio, and then said to him, God loves you and he's here with you in this time. And tears started to well up in his eyes, and he said, I'm a committed Christian. It's like, yes, I am too. And I'd never normally pray with a patient, but I just said to him, would you like to pray together now? And we did pray together, and it was a real special moment. It was coming up to the Easter weekend. We talked about perhaps trying to facilitate a way that we could watch the Sunday service at St Mary's together. Sadly, that wasn't able to happen, but I'd like to think that in time where he didn't have his family and loved ones around, I was actually able to give him some hope and comfort in what was a scary time. And I think it's very easy for us to think about the ICU and it's our office, just like where you're sat now, Steve. And for us, it's what we do every day, and it doesn't feel scary. But for those coming into it and looking at all that equipment, it's petrifying because it's an alien environment.
And how, during this time, have you been able to engage with church? How and in what ways has it kind of helped you?
Oh, right away from the beginning of lockdown, I kind of got my cogs whirring as to how we were going to do some of our usual activities online. And I absolutely love my small group. So I started texting Francis Hyde and going, how can we get this online? I know Dee's doing exercise classes online on something called Zoom. Why don't we have a look into that and see how that works? And before the lockdown actually happened, we went round one night, James, Francis and I were sat around the kitchen table trying to work out how we would translate our weekly meeting on a Monday onto the online platform. So we were quite quick at getting up and running with that. And that has been absolutely amazing because that group of people I absolutely love. They've been with me through so many times. About 3 years ago, I went through some thyroid surgery because I thought I had something growing in my thyroid that might have been cancer. So they've been with me through that. They've been with me through a job change, which was quite a daunting prospect. They've been with me through so many things. And I wanted us to be together as a small group family through this.
Oh, that's great.
As well as that, it's been really nice to do the Sunday services online. And what's been quite nice about that is because it's online and it's recorded, with my weekend shifts, I've not missed a single one, because I do it at 10 o'clock in the morning or 7 or even 11 o'clock at night, but I've not missed a single one, whereas sometimes it has been quite hard for me to go to the Sunday service, because that's often been a day I've been working. And the Fuel community was really blessed this week, because we moved everything online and did it like we would normally do. And it was just great to see the kids worshipping and sharing a real inspiration online and splitting into small groups. And it's the best we've had of Real Fuel on lockdown this week.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, just finally, Emmeline, how can we pray for you and, I don't know, your colleagues, or even Fuel, your church ministry?
I think moving forwards now, I pray for the decision makers who've got to work out how we convert our hospital back into a functioning hospital that looks after more than just COVID patients. There are many people out there waiting for surgeries for cancer or cardiac defects who really need that surgery soon, but they need it safe. And it's a phenomenal task that they've got on hand to work out how we, look after the patients with COVID-19, but also try and get back to normal as much as possible. I'm just so incredibly proud of some of my colleagues who've been out of uni just less than 18 months, who have taken to this like a duck to water. Some of them have done their first on-call shift during COVID-19. Just the whole team at Wythenshawe have been incredible, the knowledge and experience and the things that people have taught me. So just pray for all of them, really.
Yeah, we'll gladly do that. And yeah, just on behalf of the church family, I know people on the Thursday evenings like to give the round of applause, but we're so thankful that that there are Christians on the front line as well, and are able to bring not just practical help, but also just a sense of God's presence and God's blessing wherever you can. So thank you as well on behalf of us too. And thanks for your time now and sharing something of your story. We really appreciate that too.
Thanks, Steve.